guys, and welcome to today's Los Blancos podcast. Today, I'm going to keep it pretty short in terms of this analysis because I'm sure you've heard a lot of people around talking about this game. Talking with their emotions, really feeling bad about the result, feeling angry, getting pissed at the team. I'm not going to do that. I think because what we saw yesterday realistically was a culmination of the whole season, because in what we saw was a performance where the team tried. I guess they tried, but they just weren't good enough. They weren't good enough to beat Arsenal, and Arsenal were just better. And there's sometimes there's situations where teams are better than you. That's always going to happen, especially in a sports team. There's obviously going to be teams. Your reign can't go on forever, right? And that's fine. But there's ways to go out, and so far this season, I think there's been a lot of reality checks for Real Madrid that they just didn't heed. Ancelotti and the team didn't take those warnings, and it's now culminating to this point of the season where we're probably going to go empty-handed. Unless something absolutely remarkable happens next week in the Copa del Rey final, which I have zero faith for. I've said this already. It's obviously very disappointing to see how they played, considering that it was a do or die game. Everyone was talking about some type of remontada, but what we saw was a team that they were intense. They were trying to win the ball back. They were snapping into tackles. They were trying to fight everyone, sure, but actually in terms of quality, not much on display there, and there was a lack of ideas from the attack. I can forgive a loss because at the end of the day you're trying to push guys forward and you leave yourself open at the back, but the fact is I can't forgive the fact that there was just zero ideas from the offensive players in this game. Obviously, you guys probably would have heard a lot of people go through analysis, so I'm not gonna exactly go tactically into this game itself, because what can I say from this game that's so unique in terms of tactical analysis that we couldn't have said at any other game this season. Some of the passes were just not good enough. The players, they were taking on one too many people and they couldn't do it. Eyes of Vinicius in that regard, or they were just completely anonymous like Rodrigo. It is whatever you can say whatever, but I mean all of this comes down to Ancelotti, because at the end of the day, if whatever you do doesn't make a difference, then I feel that's on you, because it doesn't matter if it's Lucas Vazquez starting a right back. It doesn't matter if it's Fede. It doesn't matter if Ceballos is starting in midfield. It doesn't matter if Rodrigo's not starting. It doesn't matter if Modric is starting. Whatever happens, it is still a bad performance. And so that goes on Ancelotti. That simply goes on Ancelotti's back. There's a situation where players just aren't playing well. And I keep on referring to Flick and Barcelona, but I think there's no better example than Flick and Barcelona, because at the end of the day, this summer, who did Barcelona bring in? That was so remarkable. I mean, what are the major additions to their squad that they brought in last summer? Dani Olmo, and then you can say Marc Casado was brought in to start, I guess you can say that. They got Gavi back from injury, and they got Ansu Fati back from loan, but he hasn't really played. So the point I'm trying to make is not really too much, right? Even Dani Olmo hasn't had too much of an impact. I mean, he's played a lot of games and he's actually done pretty all right, but he's not exactly been star player, right? But what Hansi Flick has done is he's squeezed every bit of ability out of every single one of those players. I look at someone like Inigo Martinez, who, in my opinion, is not a remarkable player, but he's been made to look like such a strong centre-back this season. I look at Ferran Torres. Ferran he was a good player at Valencia, he's a very good player at Manchester City, but at Barcelona he looked distinctly average. Hansi Flick's managed to get really good use out of him off the bench, and starting in some lower level games. You look at the output he's got out of Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, and Lewandowski, and then we see the output that we've got out of Mbappe, Vinicius, and Rodrigo, and then there's a big difference in my opinion. You look at the way that he's using his midfield. You know, Pedri is looking pretty damn good in terms of the fact that he's in a completely coherent midfield, and then you compare that to Jude Bellingham, and Bellingham's trying to keep a hold of midfield that just isn't working together because Ancelotti hasn't put a structure together. I think that one of the most apparent things in this game, especially, was the rift between the midfield and the attack, or the defense and the attack, I should say, because the midfielders were busy trying to make up for deficiencies in the defense. So you saw a lot of the time Tchouaméni was dropping back as centre back, and you saw a lot of times that Fede was playing right back, and so you essentially had a back six, and then Jude Bellingham was moving forward, and that leaves you with a situation where you've got 6 defenders and 4 distinct attackers in 2 separate lines, in which there's a huge gap in their midfield where Thomas Partey, Rice can do whatever the hell they want. And they did whatever the hell they want. So it's stuff like that where I see it and I'm just like, these are easy fixes. But, I don't think this management and this board can fix it, because in my opinion, I look at that and I say, where do you go from there? Well, you make sure that the defense isn't so shit that you have to have Fede and Tchouaméni dropping back. So that then comes back to the fact that we don't have an actual right back. So why is Lucas Vazquez playing this game if Fede is just going to play right back essentially? Because that's just taking away a midfielder for no reason. Then you see, then the situation is you get a proper right back, you get a proper left back, so that an extra defender isn't needed like Tchouaméni, and then boom, you got an extra 2 midfielders. Wow, that solves the issue there, doesn't it? Not quite, not 100%. Then you have Jude Bellingham dropping back, but then that also brings up a new issue, which is the fact that the 3 attackers up top are just so isolated. They don't ask for the ball, but they don't make any runs, and they just are static. More movement's needed from the attackers. They need to drop back, help in possession, and so give Jude Bellingham the opportunity to actually drop back and help, because he's so good under pressure, but he isn't allowed to do any of that because Ancelotti tells him to stay up front. It makes no sense in my opinion. So a lot of this is fixed with a new manager, and I'm planning this summer, once the season's up, because I don't know, maybe we could have a ridiculous turnaround. But when it's announced that Ancelotti's leaving this summer, and whoever the new manager is, I'm going to make a video on every single problem Real Madrid have, and then I'm going to make a second part to that video, talking about how to fix every issue. So I'm not going to be one of those hypocritical motherfuckers who's going to tell you about every issue but then not try to solve it. I'm going to give you some solutions as well, so at least so I can prove that it's not impossible. I don't want to say, because I'm not a manager, I'm not at that level, right? So at the end of the day, it's easy for me to sit here and say Ancelotti should be doing this, should be doing that, but I'm going to try my best to at least prove that I have some ideas better than Ancelotti does. Other issues from this game: why the hell are you trying to cross? Who are you crossing to? That's the thing, it doesn't make any sense to me. I understand you're probably trying to go off rebounds, try and cause a bit of chaos, but that, in my opinion, shows a complete misunderstanding of who you're playing against, and then that comes back on Ancelotti, because Ancelotti clearly hasn't done his research before this game. How are you trying to cross the ball constantly against a team that is just going to sit back, who wants to sit back, who wants to just soak up a pressure? And you didn't really put up that much pressure against them. Arsenal were completely comfortable. Crossing is the best thing they could have done. If you told Saliba and Kivior that all they had to do was head the ball away for 90 minutes, and their threats in behind are going to be Vinicius, Mbappe, and Rodrigo, the guys who have to head the ball, I'm sure they would have been absolutely delighted. It was just a a dumbass idea from Carlo Ancelotti, and he's just not smart at all. But it's once again the problem is that there's no discipline in the attack. There's no tactical discipline in the attack, in my opinion. With these three attackers, they're left to do whatever they want, and sometimes that isn't the right thing to do. Especially when these three attackers don't have any idea how to play next to each other. So you need to give them the idea how to play them next to each other. You can't let them figure it out. Because especially if it's hurting us like this, then you cannot let them figure it out. You have to give it to them. You have to give it straight and tell them what to do. But Ancelotti's not got the backbone to do that. So that's obviously a big issue in my opinion about what the attack's problem is. I mean, we talk about the long-term future of Ancelotti. That the pure situation of that is there isn't a long-term solution. He should be gone. He should have been gone after this game. Realistically, I mean, there's no reason why we should be watching Ancelotti on the sidelines, a la Cartuja in the final against Barcelona at the Olympic Stadium. There's no point. What's the reason for us to watch that? Because we all know what's going to happen. Like there's no doubt in my mind that Ancelotti is not coming away from that game with a win. So why don't you try and shake up the odds a little bit, try and roll the dice a little bit, try and give us some sort of a chance in that final. Put Santiago Solari on the line, on the sidelines. Give us some sort of hope. I mean, right now I've got 0% chance that Real Madrid win that final. Genuinely 0% chance. I don't see a way in which, unless Barcelona makes some stupid. But even then, even if Barcelona make two stupid mistakes and gift us 2 goals, let's say Szczesny passes it to Vinicius or Inigo Martinez gets caught on the ball twice, like Saliba did yesterday. Even if that happens, I have no faith that Real Madrid would be able to keep a 2-0 lead. I have no faith that Barcelona wouldn't be able to score 3 goals against this team. And so I just don't believe that this team is able to beat Barcelona, which is ridiculous. It is ridiculous to say that, but it's true. It is completely true. And so the long-term future is that it shouldn't be. There was reports earlier today saying that Sky Sports saying that Ancelotti's going to be done. That Copa del Rey final is going to be his last game in charge. Sure, fine, whatever you say. Yeah. There's also been conflicting reports after that saying that Ancelotti's not thinking about leaving. He will only leave if he's been sacked. I mean, if you want to have a little bit of dignity, Ancelotti, please do not let yourself get sacked twice by the same club, 10 years apart. At least resign on your own. But, you know, who am I to say? In terms of the future, I'll talk a little bit more on the manager situation in the coming weeks, maybe months. Maybe I'll do that thing. If you're a early listeners, I'm not sure how many of you are there, but we did a thing back in the day talking about potential managers, and I used to give them a rating based on all their individual attributes and what they needed to be a Real Madrid coach. Stuff like man management, tactics, adaptability, stuff like that. I used to give them all a rating. I remember, so we've done this twice. We've done that twice in the past. I remember the first one, I believe, off the top of my head, it was Pochettino. So, you know, maybe that wasn't the greatest. But the second time round, I improved it a little bit. I gave it, a better ratings, and I asked Sean to help me with it a little bit as well. And the second time round, first choice was actually Hansi Flick, which is crazy to think about now, isn't it? But I remember, I'm not sure which season it was, but it was Hansi Flick. Second was Thomas Tuchel, I believe, and then third was Julian Nagelsmann. Had a real affinity for the German coaches back then, but I think that's obviously the same thing. Obviously now there's a lot less coaching choices. In my opinion, I think it's very clear who I want as coach, if we're able to get him, and that's Jurgen Klopp. I understand. I would love Xabi Alonso as well. I think they're both really exciting opportunities. But in terms of levels, I think there is a level between them two. I think Jurgen Klopp is the golden standard in terms of coach in the world. You know, I think the way Jurgen Klopp manages to get the best out of his players, there is nobody like him. And, you know, 7 years at Liverpool, however long he was at Liverpool for, he managed to squeeze every ounce of ability out of his players. But also with, you know, some limited resources at times, you know. There was points where he wasn't exactly given what he wanted. If that's the case at Real Madrid, at least he has so many good choices here. You know, imagine what he could do with Fede. Imagine what he could do with Vinicius. Imagine what he could do with Mbappe. In my opinion, that's what I would love. And he could hopefully lead our transfer policy as well a little bit. And for me, I just think Jurgen Klopp would completely change the environment around this football club right now, which is just kind of pessimistic right now. Jurgen Klopp would change all that. So I would love to have Jurgen Klopp. That being said, it's not an instant fix. You know, Jurgen Klopp does take time to gel, but when it hits, it hits. It will hit. Obviously, Xabi Alonso, I love him as well. I think he's a fantastic manager. And obviously, I don't know the feasibility of getting Jurgen Klopp with his new role at Red Bull or whatever. But I think that's obviously second choice, and it's not a bad second choice, is it? So I'd be excited for either one of them to come in. I think we just need that change. It's long overdue now. Ancelotti, I feel like, has lost the dressing room. And I think Courtois' quote after the game saying that, I don't know why we crossed the ball so much, we no longer have hostile, I think that really resonated. I think that's the point. I think the tactical ideas, Ancelotti are just gone. I think he's gone. I think it's over for him. I don't think he's got much left in the tank, and I think it's time to end it if you're Ancelotti at Real Madrid. I think this game was the nail in the coffin, and hopefully there's not another nail in the coffin next week, but there probably is going to be another nail in the coffin. I'm not excited about that game. I'm really not. And I'm not excited for the League Clasico either. Arsenal, I mean, I've got to say they're much better than us over 2 legs. I was sceptical over Remontada. I thought what we did over the week, you know, the Real Madrid teams of the past, you know, I'm not faulting the media team at Real Madrid, but I'm faulting the players, because they're the ones that are just meant to shut up and work. I don't care. Like, I don't want to hear, you know, although it's nice to have some Instagram, whatever, you and I apologize on Instagram and say we're going to come back next week, fine, whatever. But I don't want to hear it constantly throughout the week talking about Remontada, because that's not how it works. Manifesting one, that's not how it works. You need to actually go onto the pitch and show it. And, you know, this Real Madrid team haven't showed it throughout the season, so why should I have believed that it was going to happen yesterday? I had no faith in it yesterday, to be totally honest. And rightfully so, they proved me. One final thing I just want to say is, I know a lot of people are down right now, and I understand it, but I don't think you should be, because in the history of the Champions League, Real Madrid are more likely to actually lose than win. I know it may not seem like it in the last few years, where we've just experienced unparalleled success, but yeah, we are more likely to actually lose the Champions League than we are to win it. We're the most lucky fan base in the world. I'm more than grateful for that. But it wasn't good enough. And I thought there was one final thing is, I heard Sid Lowe talking about it on TSFP, talking about how Real Madrid are more likely to not come back than actually come back, and it's completely true. You know, in the history, how many times have Real Madrid come back and how many times they have failed to come back? It's a rare thing, but these last few years have just completely inflated the idea of us coming back, and I think this game should put us back down to earth where we should be. The Remontadas, we shouldn't take it for granted how brilliant they were. But this mountain was just too high to climb, in my opinion. You left yourself too high of a mountain to climb, and you just couldn't do it. And that's how it is. My final point is talking about. I mean, these losses. I don't know, but in the Carlo Ancelotti era, we don't just lose. If we lose, like 1-0 and we played well, but we just couldn't get the win. I understand it. I can understand it, but every time we lose for some reason under Carlo Ancelotti, these last 4 years, it's been like completely catastrophic, and that's probably down to the idea that if it's a close game, Real Madrid actually probably normally win or draw or get something out of the game. But when it's like this, it's just when we lose, it's just like total implosion, right? You think about the times we've actually lost this season: Barcelona twice, Liverpool, Milan. I'm thinking about some others. We lost against Betis. All of these times where we were just absolutely appalling on the pitch. Those are the only times where we never just lose because the other team managed to lock us up, or we just couldn't, we lose because we are just horrible on that day. I don't know what else to say, to be honest. Apart from that, I don't know what game we got this week. We got Athletic Club this weekend. Mbappe's not going to play because he's got injured, but otherwise he had a horrible red card last week, which I didn't talk about it because we didn't have a podcast, but it was absolutely disgusting. We got Athletic Club this weekend, and then next week we've got midweek game against Getafe, and then Copa del Rey final. So will I do I'm thinking about doing an Athletic Club preview, maybe. I don't know if there's any point, to be honest, doing one of those, but we'll see. Apart from that, I'll see you guys later. Please like and subscribe. A lot of content coming out this summer. But apart from that, thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.